Hello everybody. Today I'm back with a watercolor review, and it is the M. Graham watercolors that's been provided to me by Laurie. I've been wanting to try this paint for a long time, but it's not very well available in Europe. I know of only one store who have it in Germany, and it is, as you can imagine, therefore very expensive. And you know, I can't invest too much. It's not that I'm being paid for these reviews. This is just, you know, I do these for my passion for art supplies and watercolor and related supplies like gouache and pencils. So I can't invest too much. But then Laurie said, you know what, Mandy, I have this paint, and if I wrap them really carefully, I can send you all my colors. So I was really curious how she was going to do that, but she came up with something amazing. She sent me these Altoids, and in these Altoids there is this Trident chewing gum package, and in this package she put some of these what do you call them, plastic blisters or plastic, well, pans. She ate all the chewing gum, then put some paints in it, made a little lid, I would almost say, of cardboard with the paint colors on it, and she sent them to me, and they came to me in a perfect mint condition, so I can use them very well. So here's another set, which I absolutely love. I'd never ever thought of this, but this really is, if you're going on a holiday and if you buy some really good quality artist paint, then this is the way to go. This one is not, this is mainly Daniel Smith, Holbein and Da Vinci paint, I believe, so I'm going to put these aside. But this is also M. Graham, if I am correct, except for the last two on the outer edge, except for these two, I think. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to put them in the right order because I already made a color chart. I'm going to swatch for you again, of course. So putting all of this aside, I contacted M. Graham a couple of a long time ago actually, because Laurie sent me this set in September. I know it's a long time ago. I'm so sorry, Laurie, that I didn't get around to it sooner. A lot has happened here. I won't get into that on YouTube, but my life just didn't, you know, offer me any space to review, as you have been able to see on my channel. But I'm gonna do it now. So, but around that time, I was in touch with M. Graham, and they sent me these color charts that provide some information on pigment numbers, transparency, and how much the paint is staining. What I also like is that they also add the names of the pigments on the color chart. So it just, you know, numbers. I don't remember numbers very easily, but I remember names a little bit quicker. So they also have gouache. Oh, I'm really dying to try this because I have already tried the watercolors. I always do that before a review. I mean, even though I'm going to be swatching now, which I haven't done yet, so that's still going to be very, you know, out of the box, spontaneous remarks by me. But I did paint with it yesterday. I made this watercolor and gouache creature, and for all the watercolor in this, and there is a lot underneath too, I used the M. Graham paints, and I have to say I was impressed. Many people ask me, Mandy, what paints do you think are best? And it's very hard to say because there are awfully a lot of good paints. I mean, Schmincke Horodam is amazing, as is the Winsor & Newton, as is Talens Rembrandt, and I think for as far as I've been able to see with this painting yesterday, the M. Graham fits in that line. And I'm not going to say which is best, not yet. First we're going to do a color chart, but still I think it's very hard to say which is best. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint the color chart, and then I have some empty areas here that I'll be doing a little bit of testing as for where mixing is concerned, and I want to test some effects of the paint. So first thing I noticed yesterday was how easily the paint lifts off once it's dried up. And that is because there is apparently some honey in it, which some people say make it difficult to travel with, because the paint will still remain moist, or rather fluid, to the experience of some. But I have to say that maybe that depends on the climate you live and work in. Over here it's not a problem, so, or hasn't been a problem at least. Okay, so the first color I'm picking up is that azo yellow, and I'm picking it up really thick. So I'm trying to lay it down as thick as I can, and then I'm going to add a little bit more water when I move to the right. That's to test the strength of the color. And I really like it. I do love azo yellow. Okay, here we go. The hands are yellow deep. So again, this is Laura's collection, so I didn't choose the colors. But I think she's got a really nice collection of colors, and of course the colors that she has are all chosen on the basis of her full collection. So maybe you know, if you were to try an ideal set, you might choose different colors maybe, but this has to do everything with somebody's personal watercolor collection. So beautiful deep colors. That's what my birds are talking again, sorry. They are completely covered up with cloth, the cages, but they keep on going. So yellow ochre, which is a rather opaque when you apply it thick. It's a warm yellow ochre. Very good strength of color. I do notice that when you don't add a lot of water to this paint, it doesn't flow very easily. Like now I really have to work it to make a seamless transition. So this paint works best, which I noticed yesterday too, when you add quite a bit of water and you dilute it a lot, which is possible because, as you can see, this paint has quite a bit of pigment. This doesn't come off. Oh yeah, it needed a little bit of working. I'm actually using so much paint on my brush that it feels rather syrupy rather than watercolor. So the reason I do this, and the reason I don't just, you know, apply a thin layer, is because I like to work with colors very saturated. So I will sometimes use a color as thick as I just did now. So I really like to see that gradation. I really like to see how far it takes me. The azo orange, I used azo orange for the beak of the bird. For the beak of this bird man, only I had a layer of dark color underneath, so it looks very dark on my drawing, but then it isn't. This is orange is by nature a rather warm color, but I would say this is kind of a cool orange. One of my birds just fell from a stick. Don't know if you heard that, but if you heard anything weird, it was my bird tumbling to the ground. Okay, then there is transparent iron, transparent orange iron oxide. Which is what I would say a true brown color. This is a color I would use to paint a tree on a summer's day. It's a warm brown. Okay, mineral violet. I haven't tried that one yet, but I'm curious. This looks like I am trying to take off as much paint as I can. This looks like a ceremonial purple. It's a rather cool violet that goes towards lavender. Oh, that's gorgeous. Okay. Ultramarine violet deep. Here is another cool purple. I have to be careful because I'm rubbing the paint and I don't want to splatter onto my color chart, which just happened here in the yellow ochre. And this is granulating, which it should be because it's ultramarine, so it should granulate. Although the other day I saw somebody's color chart and I don't remember the brand, and they had an ultramarine that didn't granulate. That was weird. Then I would say that's not ultramarine. Okay, so those are the first 8 colors. And I did some work on picking up the colors because I was looking to get almost pure paint onto my brush. But as I'll show you here, this was totally dry paint and I just picked it up with my brush and it comes off immediately. You don't have to work it. I found that, for example, Winsor & Newton, which is an absolutely great quality artist paint, but they do sometimes tend to take a little bit of work before you get them off. And, you know, budget-wise, if you have really expensive brushes, you might look for paint that comes off easily, so you don't so you don't wear and tear your brushes too much. Due to the techniques I'm using, I am not using very expensive brushes because, as you can see, I always spend quite a while getting a lot of paint from the pans. Azo green, I love this color, but you know, if you've seen reviews by me before, you will know by now that I am a sucker for golden green colors, and this one is absolutely gorgeous. I like how here it's the color of moss on a tree branch, and when you move over here and you add water, it becomes the warm golden light that you can sometimes see in a forest, and I think it's wonderful. So absolutely great. Then we move on to permanent green light, which I've just wetted. This is a color I never ever use. Oops. It's running a little bit into its neighbor. I only use permanent green light to mix. It's purely personal preference. I'm not a fan of the PG7 pigment. In my view, it should always be toned down with anything to look natural. But you do need it to mix. So I have it, but I never use it, you know, like this in its original, well, how do you say it? In its original color. Okay, phthalo green, yellow shade. And that's a warmer green. Oops. It was still wet. I had no idea. Well, unintendedly, this does show you a little bit about how well the paint flows. In my Magella review, I said the paint hardly flows at all. Well, this paint flows wonderfully, as you can see. Although now I have a contaminated color chart, but all right. Like I said in my previous review, something almost always goes wrong in making color charts. This is phthalo cyanide green. Which is a pigment you will never see in my work. You will never look at my work and recognize this pigment. It will always be mixed in with something else. But, you know, it's wonderful for making good mixes. If you mix the PG7 with a certain kind of red, you get this beautiful, natural, neutral tint. So here we go, cerulean blue. This is a color I often used for my skies. But then I realized I prefer painting night scenes, so I am painting, by the way, on Schuller's Hammer number 10 watercolor paper with a coarse grain. This one flows really well. Okay, then onto turquoise, which is a mix of the PG7 and of phthalo blue, the yellow shade. Oh, and I love this. This is a color, oops, that you can't see. Oh my god, this paint flows too well for making really neat color charts. This is a color you will see in my work. Oh, it's powerful. It's a really, really strong color. Gorgeous. This is like, you know, a color you will see in the feathers of a peacock. Peacock blue. Turquoise it is. I said peacock blue. And Graham says turquoise. And I agree. It definitely is turquoise. Ultramarine. Well, this one should granulate. And looking... Oh, the ultramarine violet deep granulates, but there is no PB29 in this. So, okay, I'm laying it down very purely. This is a color you will also not see in my work, only in mixes. I do like it. I do like to use this one if I'm looking for a granulating purple, then I will use this one, or a granulating green, which I sometimes want if I want to paint a tree or something and I want granulation in there, in the green. Yeah. Okay, phthalo blue red shade. that one comes off really easily. But that's, I find that the phtalos always come off the pan really well. It's an easy color for watercolors. It's so powerful that even when I add only water, look, great flow. Yeah, this behaves beautifully. I am really positive that when you do buy this paint, it is, you know, it's very expensive over here because it's not very well available. But I am absolutely positive that when you do get it, you get a lot of value for your money because the paint is really, really strong. So I use my paint very intensely. But if you use it, but still, I can see that a little goes a long way. If you see that, you know, I can paint a lot with this. So what Laurie sent me is probably gonna, you know, provide me with paints for quite a bit. And I'm definitely gonna use them. This is a Pyrrole red that I also used yesterday. And I was amazed at its color intensity, although Pyrrole is always a very intense color. But what I really like about it is that it's rated light fastness rate is 1, which, if I remember correctly, and I'll check that first before I blab away too much, light fastness 1 is excellent. So I love using red colors. And therefore, I'm absolutely thrilled to hear that this incredibly strong color is light fast. This is a color I might definitely try to get into my own collection because I like how strong it is, and for reds and purples, for reds and mauves and stuff, it's always hard to find light, fast colors, especially when you're working on commission. So this is a color I would like to have. So I might look for that. Okay, permanent alizarin crimson. Beautiful lipstick red. When you apply the paint really thick like I'm doing now, it feels so buttery, so smooth. It behaves really well. I mean, this paint is not intended to use this way, but when you do use it that way, it still behaves beautifully. You actually can use it almost pure out of the tube. This one is staining a lot, I think, because I'm finding it hard to pick it back up, and you will keep seeing a line here. So this color stains really, really hard. Gorgeous color. Then transparent red iron oxide. I wonder how much different that is from the transparent orange iron oxide. Oh yeah, this really is a PR101. Oh, I love this color. The first time I worked with this color was in a Rembrandt series, in a Rembrandt set, and I used it to paint skin tones and trees. And it was the first color that I ran out of in my set. It's gorgeous. Oh, this beautiful color. Beautifully warm, glowy kind of brown color. Beautiful. I am curious how it'll dry up. Then raw umber is another color I always use a lot of for shading. I also use this one in skin tones. If you want to make somebody look ill or sad, adding raw umber works magic. and I have my style of painting is very illustrative, so my the emotions in my paintings are sometimes a little bit exaggerated, or the birds seriously don't agree with my putting a cloth over them. But this is gorgeous. Beautiful green, a beautiful raw umber. Yeah, that's one I would really like to use. And what I see now is the alizarin crimson is drying up beautifully bright, because when I just lay it down, it was kind of dark and heavy, but now it's sort of popping up. It's getting lighter as it dries, but lighter and also brighter. And brighter is something that doesn't happen very quickly when paint dries up, but here it does. Oh God. Oh, next time, next review, I will just find another spot for the birds, because they are trying to do the review for me. Right, sap green. That is a color I do use. In my work, I tend to go for warm tones. I was taught to use both cool and warm tones, but I am being stubborn and I prefer to use almost only warm tones. So this sap green and olive green and the azo green and the nickel quinacridone gold would definitely be colors that would end up in my work. Oh, I love it. And then the last one of this set is neutral tint. The other is, as is Daniel Smith Azurite. I'm not going to test it. And Daniel Smith Iridescent Copper. So I'm not using those, but I am going to get the neutral tint, which is a color I use frequently to tone colors down. And what I like about this one, I just told you that I sometimes use the PG7 in combination with, and I'm not sure if, I don't remember the pigment right now, with a red, and they make a neutral tint that is very similar to this one, because this neutral tint here is purplish, and I love this. This neutral tint would be absolutely 100% perfect for me painting a night landscape. Maybe it's got alizarin crimson in it, because the alizarin crimson is very, very staining. Let's see if they agree with me. Alizarin crimson, yeah, staining. Yeah, well, I already saw that. But so here is the line where you can see that just really, I'll just zoom in a little bit. Here you can see a line. In none of the other colors, except for this one that I didn't dilute very well for a transition, but this line here is definitely a mark of staining. And what I see here is another line of staining. So I wouldn't, this is PG, I can see it of course. Neutral tint consists of PV19. PV19, right, PV19, quinacridone rose. They don't have a color that's pure, quinacridone violet. And it's also indeed a staining color. Yeah. So this one is staining and that one is staining, and all the others are not staining. What do they say about the ultramarine violet deep? Do they say staining? No. This is just, this line is only here because I didn't mix it very well. But, so this is the set, and you know, I love it. This is the ease with which I could pick up paints that had already fully dried up is amazing. Is very, very, very good. The intensity I find is a lot like Old Holland watercolor paints, only I find these paints easier to handle because they are more like the So mixing the quinacridone gold with the Pyrrole red, sorry, which is not a very likely couple. It would be more likely to mix it with alizarin crimson, which is exactly why I'm doing this. Okay. Doing a cerulean blue square. And I'm going to add some azo yellow into that. Oh, look at that go. Beautiful, strong colors. The pigments are really, really powerful because they really push other colors back. And now I'm going to try the alizarin crimson. Getting a little bit difficult now to speak because I am, you know, I'm playing, I'm playing around. And I am adding the Hansa yellow. See how much the alizarin crimson is staining. You can actually really see these lines here. So that's something to keep in mind when you buy that alizarin crimson, is that this one is staining very, very deeply into the paper. I should compare it to my other brands because I can't tell you by heart, but I don't think I remember having seen an alizarin crimson that stains as much as this one. Okay, I'm going to try and make a really pretty purple by using a phthalo blue red shade and some alizarin crimson. Okay, and now I want to try the phthalo cyanine green, and I'm going to try it with the alizarin crimson. It's not the neutral tint mix that I had in mind, but I wouldn't be surprised if it just happened to work. Ooh, uh-oh, that's me. Another little bit of contamination. So let's see how close we can get to neutral tint with these colors. I always kind of like to play, can you tell? Ooh, wow. This paint doesn't need strokes from my brush. It will simply move on its own. But do you see what I mean with neutral tint? Beautiful, isn't it? It still has a green undertone, so I might add a little bit more. Of course, normally you would mix this in a palette, right? I have a palette right here by my side, but I'm still working on paper. Look at that. Not that much different, is it? It's a good neutral tint. Lovely. Yep, this is definitely good paint. Azo orange. Okay. As you can see, again, I always use a lot of color. Now I'm going to take the Azo green. And what I'm noticing is that this color is not flowing. It's not a very dominant pigment. It doesn't really want to flow. I wonder what happens if I the Azo yellow will flow more. Not too much though. What does the Hansa yellow do? I always find yellows to be rather dominant. No. Okay. So what shall we do on the other end? Shall we try, let's try a purple. This is the Ultramarine Violet Deep. Let's try to mix that one with the cerulean. The ultramarine violet is not a very intense pigment, so I spent as much effort getting that paint off the little blob as the cerulean, but the cerulean came off more easily. And I love how these two paints, even though they are very different in intensity, how well they behave towards one another. And last thing we're going to do with the same color is gonna drop, oops, a little bit of the alizarin crimson in the middle of this and see how it runs, because this is I'll grab that thing again. This is rather granulating. Yeah, they think so too. And the alizarin crimson is not granulating. So I want to see what it does. Okay, so here's a couple of tests that I did with the M. Graham paints, and my verdict is that in the first place, I would really love to own a set with, you know, colors that really go well together in a very good mixable set with pigments that make up a really beautiful complete set. Because I see that this is paint that I would love to work with. It's easy to put into a palette, to let it dry, to take it with you when you go out of your house, out of your studio. Although you have to remember that there's a lot of honey in it, so for some people it just remains too fluid and is not good for traveling. And I wouldn't want you to ruin your notebooks and your travel bags over it. all the paint, because that would be a shame. But all in all, I'm really pleased with the colors. I love this neutral tint that came out of the cyanide green and the alizarin crimson. I love this the gradation here in the color. I love the there's a beautiful, already in a set that, you know, that I just got with more or less random colors that Laurie had in her collection. There's beautiful granulation, there is staining, there's a lot of different characteristics in the paint that for true watercolorists are wonderful to work with. And I will definitely use up this watercolor paint. I painted one painting with it yesterday, but I will certainly go back into it and work with it some more. So what else can I tell you about M. Graham? It's a small company, so you know, there is not a big marketing cannon behind it, but they just have a really good product. And well, I think they're fantastic, and you know, the correspondence with them was really friendly and kind of funny as well. So yeah, I really like this product, and I hope I can get by a good set, you know, because I would love to use this. So, well, so far my M. Graham set. And oh, you wanted to know which one is best? Well, this is definitely a shared first place with the other brands that I named, which are Schminky Horridam, Winter & Newton Artists, Rembrandt. I find also very wonderful to work with. Am I forgetting one? Daniel Smith is also really good. Although Daniel Smith is, you know, it's got a really big collection of paints. But this is really good. So, shared first place, definitely. Thank you for watching, and see you again soon. Bye. Oh, and thank you, Laurie. Thank you, Laurie, for sending me this wonderful paint. I'm really chuffed that I've been able to try this one. Thank you. Bye.